refresh our memories. Here are the endings. We had AIS for the first two forms, and then we had AIT in the bottom left, or the il, elle, and on forms. And then we had IONS for nous, and IEZ for vous, and il and elle were AI. Once you see the pattern, and you get those endings down, it's really not that hard to do the future tense. And just remember, this is when you're saying will. Something will happen. I will do something. Someone will be somewhere. Whatever. Anytime you're going to say will for the future tense, that's going to be this tense. Now, if you're going to say I'm going to do something, someone is going to do something, use the verb aller. Je vais travailler. Il va écouter. He's going to listen. So use that structure when you're saying someone, you're really going to say they're going to do something. You can stick with that structure. All right, so now you have two ways that you can use to say something's going to happen in the future. Whether you're going to do something or it will happen is great. All right, so now you have some new tools to pull into your French conversation. And hey, guys, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. And hey, remember to practice with me on the podcast. You just look up the Language Tutor French, join the podcast there. And hey, if you want to, chip in, Bonjour mes amis, bienvenue. Hey guys, welcome back to the Language Tutor French series. So I have a relatively short and easy lesson for you today. We're going to be talking about the conditional tense. Yes, the conditional tense. Now, if you don't exactly know what the conditional tense is, I'm going to give you a really quick breakdown of it. And it's pretty easy to do in French. All right, conditional tense is typically in what we would say in English when we use the word would. All right. It's like you would do something if the conditions were right. It's conditional. Here are a couple examples. Like if I said, I would sell my house. If conditions are right, somebody offered enough money, you're given conditions, you say, I would sell my house. Okay. We would eat there. We would eat there. You opened a restaurant and we would eat there. The conditions were right. We would. What if you said she would finish it? She's the kind of person, if she were to start it, she would finish it if the conditions were there. So that's what we mean by conditional tense, is that somebody would do something, something would happen. All right. I think you get the idea. Let's talk about how to do this in French. Now, let's start with general ER verbs, because ER verbs are
are very common in French. So when we are going to conjugate ER verbs, what we're going to do is, you remember last episode we talked about the future tense. All right. And I told you how to get that future stem, right? So we're going to take the future stem, the stem of the verb that we use in the future tense, and we're going to add a certain ending onto that. Now you're going to recognize these endings because they're actually the endings that we used back when we did the imperfect tense. Okay, so let's just really quick go to our chart here and let's put the endings up and just quickly go over those again, refresh our memories. Here are the endings. We had AIS for the first two forms, and then we had AIT in the bottom left, or the il, elle, and all forms. And then we had IONS for nous and IEZ for vous, and il and elle were AIENT. So those were our endings back when we talked about the imperfect tense. So we put those endings on there, but now we're actually using that same stem that we used before when we talked about the future tense. We're just kind of tagging it on, okay? Okay, so now that we have seen the endings to the verb, all we have to do is take that stem that I told you about in the last episode when we talked about the future. Take that stem, put this ending on there, and you've got it. It's very easy. Let's do an example on the chart. Let's do the verb vendre, to sell. Okay, remember that root when we did vendre, we actually, since it's an RE verb, last episode I told you in RE verbs, you just take off the E. So all we got to do is take that VENDR, that's our root, and just put those endings. So je vendrai, tu vendrais, il, elle, on vendrait with an AIT now, and nous vendrions, vous vendriez, and il. So all we got to do is take that VENDR, that's our root, and just put those endings. So je vendrai, tu vendrai, il, elle, on vendrait with an AIT now, and nous vendrions, vous vendriez, and il and elle vendrait. With an AIT now, and nous vendrions, vous vendriez, and il and elle vendrait. All right, that's how we do it. But now you know there are going to be some irregular stems, right? We know we always have to have some troublemakers. So I want to go over the irregular stems with you, okay? So let's put the first one up. The verb aller, to go, is going to use the stem IR, okay? Now this stems with you, okay? So let's put the first one up. The verb aller, to go, is going to use the stem IR, okay? Now this is going to be our starting point. So if I wanted to say I would go, I would simply say j'irai, j'irai. So you can see I took the IR and I just put the ending on there for AIT. So just take that irregular stem and there you go. So I'm going to do all je forms right here. Now for avoir, So if I wanted to say I would go, I would simply say j'irai. J'irai. So you can see I took the IR and I just put the ending on there for AIT. So just take that irregular stem and there you go. So I'm going to do all je forms right here. Now for avoir, to have, you know this verb, the stem is going to be AUR. Now, example, I would have. That would be j'aurais. J'aurais. Okay. Now, être, to be, is going to use the stem ser. S-E-R. So I would be je serais. Je serais. Be would be je serais. Je serais. The verb faire, F-A-I-R-E, which means to do or to make, is going to use the stem F-E. A-I-R-E, which means to do or to make. Is going to use the stem F-E-R. So I would do or I would make would be je ferais. Je ferai. Pouvoir. To be able to, right? This is how we say we can do something. So it's going to use P-O-U-R-R. Now, if we wanted to say, I would be able to, then we would say, je pourrais. Je pourrais. Devoir, which means to have to do something, sort of must. Which means to have to do something. Sort of must. We're going to use DEVR. And I would have to would be je devrais. Je devrais. And I would have to would be je devrais. Je devrais. Savoir, to know, is going to use SAUR. As its stem in this tense. And so I would know would be je saurais, je saurais. Venir, to come, it's going to use VIENDR. As its irregular stem. So if I wanted to say, I would come, you had a party, I would come, sure. Je viendrai. Je viendrai. All right, let's do a couple more. Voir, to see, is actually going to use VER. R as its stem. So I would see would be je verrai, je verrai. Now, the last one is vouloir, which means to want. This is interesting. It uses the stem VO. UDR. Now, if you wanted to say, I would want, you could say, je voudrais. But this say, I would want, you could say, je voudrais. But this is interesting because if you, a lot of times if you're ordering in a restaurant, you instead of saying je veux, I want something, a polite way of saying is je voudrais, je voudrais. So I would, it's like saying I would like, I would want, but it kind of implies I would like, like we would say in English. And that, my friends, is how we do this tense. You just take those endings in the stem and put it together and you got it. So bring this into your conversation over the next several weeks, but always supplement your learning with new vocabulary and new words. Very important. We'll be having more vocabulary lessons in the future. And hey, practice with me on the go in the Language Tutor French podcast. I'd love to practice with you. Well, guys, I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson, but in the meantime, I wish for you and all your family and friends, paix et bénédiction, peace and blessings. I'll see you soon. A bientôt. Friends, thanks for watching The Language Tutor. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave it in the comment section below the video. And please click subscribe and the notification bell so that you'll never miss any of our language lessons.
So, why should I learn a language with either of you? We match you with the best tutor.
Bonjour mes amis, bienvenue. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Language Tutor French series. Well, you might be able to guess what this lesson is about because last time we did comparatives, and if you have ever studied language a little bit, you know that comparatives are usually taught with superlatives. All right, so we're going to get superlatives in this episode. Now, language likes to use big fancy words, grammar terms. So you might be saying, what exactly is a superlative? Well, if you don't know, don't worry about it. Think back to high school. You were reading your high school yearbook when it came out, and you get to the superlatives part. And the superlatives were always
Still applying for jobs without tech skills? Let's fix that. Learn Python, SQL, Power BI, and more on Data Camp. It's hands-on, in-browser, and actually fun. Learn
Bonjour mes amis, bienvenue. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Language Tutor French series. Well, you might be able to guess what this lesson is about because last time we did comparatives, and if you have ever studied language a little bit, you know that comparatives are usually taught with superlatives. All right, so we're going to get superlatives in this episode. Now, you know, language likes to use big fancy words, grammar terms. So you might be saying, what exactly is a superlative? Well, if you don't know, don't worry about it. Think back to high school. You were reading your high school yearbook when it came out, and you get to the superlatives part. And the superlatives were always the most something, the best something. You remember that. And so it might be the most likely to succeed or the best musician in the band, whatever the case may be. That's really what a superlative is, if I can say it right, is the most at something, the best at something, might be the least at something. Okay. So that's what a superlative is. It's is comparing a noun with a group. Okay. So that's what we're doing in this episode. We're going to learn how to do superlatives. They're not very difficult, but let's give it a shot. So let's put up a few words really quick. For the most, we're usually going to say le plus. Le plus. Now, you know that plus means more. So in this case, when we put le in front of it, it becomes the most. All right. So that's not too difficult. We can use the same word, have two words in English. Now we have one in French. No big deal. So now we only have to remember one. Plus and le plus. All right. Now, for the least, we're going to use that less word, moins. Le moins. Le moins. Okay. So those are our main two words that we're going to use in this lesson. Now let's put up a sentence and show you some examples. Claire is the smartest girl in the class. Good for Claire. All right, Claire's the smartest girl in the class. We put that EST in English. She is the most smart. We're comparing her to the whole class. So let's look at what it looks like take a look in French at how we do this. So Claire est la fille la plus intelligente. Intelligent de la classe. Okay, now let's just break this down a little bit. We don't say Claire is the most smart. We have to kind of imply the most smart what. So, est la fille la plus intelligente de la classe. Okay, now let's just plus. So Claire est la fille la plus intelligente de la classe. Okay, now let's just break this down a little bit. We don't say Claire is the most smart. We have to kind of imply the most smart what. So Claire is the girl, the most intelligent of the class, not in of. Okay. So you kind of see how we're structuring things now. So Claire est la fille la plus intelligente de la classe. All right. That sounds cool, doesn't it? All right. Now, let's do a least. She is the least worried about the test. Sounds like she studied. She's the least worried about the test. Now we're going to say this. Elle est la moins inquiète. Elle est le moins inquiète du test. Okay. Now here we didn't. Elle est le moins inquiète du test. Okay. Now here we didn't really have to specify she is the woman, the less worried. I mean, because the class could have men, it could have women, it can have anybody. So we're just saying the least worried. So elle est la moins inquiète du test. The least worried of the test, about the test. And we use the to imply about. Okay. Now, you remember last lesson, you get it down and then you got one little group that has to be different, right? Okay, so I want to give you the list of those that we have to treat a little bit differently, but they really make common sense. So last time we talked about the word bon, and I said, you can't say the better, the gooder. Okay, same thing here. We're going to say the best by using that same word, le meilleur, le best by using that same word, le. Okay, same thing here. We're going to say the best by using that same word, le meilleur, le meilleur. Same concept, better and the best. Okay, mauvais. We talked about this one last lesson as well. Worse is pire. We talked about this one last, and the best. Okay. Mauvais. We talked about this one last lesson as well. Worse is pire. We're going to use the same thing. The worst, le pire, the worst. Okay, really doing the same thing as before. We're just putting le in front of some of these. Okay, and again, we talked about petit, all right? And in this case, a little, not much, moindre. We're going to use moindre, the least, okay? Same word we can use for the least. Well, mes amis, that's really how we do superlatives in French. Not a big deal. Really makes kind of common sense, doesn't it? Well, bring these into your conversation. Or try to think of ways, how can I say different things about my friends or my family? Think of people in your friend group, your family. What could I say? So-and-so is the tallest